This episode is sponsored by Kinsta. As a business, you have client meetings and keeping up with everyday tasks. Who has the time to stress out about site security and speed? Well, with Kinsta, the technical stuff is taken care of. Kinsta is your managed hosting provider for WordPress, meaning that customers get a hosting environment alongside a plethora of features, configurations, and optimizations. With Kinsta, you get lightning-fast load times, top-tier security, and unmatched human-only customer support. Whether you're a business owner, web developer, or running a digital agency, Kinsta makes managing your website easy and efficient. Did I mention fast load times? Just by moving to Kinsta, you can experience up to 200% faster load times, as well as enterprise-grade security. And thanks to their unlimited free expert-led migrations, Kinsta ensures a smooth transition from other hosting providers. I really enjoy My Kinsta, which is the platform's intuitive custom dashboards that make managing my website or multiple websites a breeze. Ready to experience Kinsta's hosting for yourself? Get your first month free when you sign up at kinsta.com today. It's the perfect opportunity to see why Kinsta is trusted by thousands of businesses worldwide to power their websites. Visit kinsta.com to get this limited time offer for new customers on select plans. Don't miss out. Get started for free today. Guys, I've got something cool to tell you about. As an engineering leader, a manager, and an engineer myself, I'm geeking out over a new product I'm just discovering that helps me with each of these points of view. The great team at SEMA, builders of the SEMA Intelligence Platform, have been working on what they call the Product Roadmap Radar. It's this integrated solution that uses generative AI to observe your code and Jira in order to summarize, synthesize, and make it easier to deliver your roadmap. It not only helps keep your roadmap on track, but it helps reduce the time engineers spend in meetings. Cue all the engineers clapping. The Product Roadmap Radar is extremely easy to set up. This only takes about 5 minutes. Just enable your integrations and let AI do all the mapping for you. My favorite part? I'm glad you asked. The radar doesn't just tell you about your roadmap. It suggests changes you need to make based on the code that's been written and the stories that have been addressed. No commenting, no special setup, all generative AI. It gives you an outside view of your roadmap based on the code and projects a target completion date based on outstanding work and activity. Again, no comments, no special setup. It even detects shadow work when development is being done but Jira isn't being updated. I'm pretty jazzed about it, and I think you will be too. Take a second to watch a short but awesome demo video. Go to codestory.co/PRR to watch it today. You'll like what you see. This episode is sponsored by Postman. Postman is the world's leading API platform, trusted by 98% of the Fortune 500 and over 40 million developers. Tap into APIs from 18,000 plus companies to power agents that make smarter decisions. Learn more at postman.com/podcast/codestory. This message is sponsored by Melee Search. Today, search isn't just a feature, it's a cornerstone. And Melee Search gives your users the experience they need with lightning-fast performance, full-text search, AI usage, and multimodal capabilities. Melee Search delivers relevant results in less than the blink of an eye. Use the promo code CODESTORY at checkout to get 2 months free at meleesearch.com. That's MEILI search.com.
We had a situation where we had a massive regression before we had planned to do a pretty big marketing and public launch. And we had put a lot of resources into the marketing side of creating assets and all these things that led to this moment. And the end result was that there was regression right before, maybe within 24 hours that we were planning to do this. And so we had to make the really tough call that it couldn't be salvaged in time to really go forward with the launch. And so we scrapped the original launch plans. At least weeks in the making, which in startup time may as well be quarters, was now for naught. I'm Brooke Hartley May, CEO and co-founder of Infactory.
This is Code Story, a podcast bringing you interviews with tech visionaries.
I think 6 months moonlighting.
There's nothing on the back end.
Who share what it takes to change an industry.
I don't exactly know what to do
took
next.
many goes to get right.
who built the teams that have their
A
back,
company is its
The
people.
teams help each other achieve
Most
more.
proud of our team.
keeping scalability top of mind.
All that infrastructure was a
Yes,
pain.
we've been fighting it as we grow.
Total waste of time.
The stories you don't read in the headlines.
It's not an easy thing to achieve, mind
Took it
you.
off the shelf and dusted it off and tried it again.
To ride the ups and downs of the startup life.
You need to really want
It's
it.
not just about technology.
All this and more on Code Story.
I'm your host, Noah Labhart, and today, how Brooke Hartley May is giving you AI without the maybe, enabling you to build trustworthy agents across your data sphere. This episode is brought to you by Paddle. Don't settle for less when you can have more, MOR, with Paddle, your merchant of record. Eliminate the headaches of payments, grow your revenue everywhere, and focus on what you do best, building your product. Get more revenue with less hassle at paddle.com. This episode is brought to you by PropelOff. People take authentication for granted, but it's more than how customers log into your product. It's how you manage your relationship with your users. The easiest way to make authentication your advantage is to use PropelOff. PropelOff is more than just functional. It's powerful. With tools like Managed UIs, Enterprise SSO, robust user management features, and actionable insights, PropelOff adapts as your product grows. And the best part? When auth is effortless, your team can focus on scaling, not troubleshooting. That means more releases, happier customers, and more growth for your business. Save dev time, win over your customers, and propel your business forward with PropelOff. Check them out at propeloff.com. That's PROPELAUTH.com. Brooke Hartley May lives in Oakland, California, on the East Bay, claiming to get more sunshine than her neighbors in San Francisco. She was a history major in college, which makes her path to technology a bit different. She still enjoys writing and reading in long form to this day. And outside of tech, she is married with a 4-year-old son and a pug. She enjoys life as a parent and a startup founder, but was sad that the Oakland A's left Oakland amongst other teams. A few years ago, Brooke and her now co-founder observed that people were viewing AI as this end-all, be-all solution. But what quickly happened to these individuals was that the data needed to make AI effective was not in quite the same state. This is the creation story of Infactory.
Infactory is a data platform where we work primarily with large enterprises in regulated industries, media, anywhere where you find that accuracy and the way that data is presented and the level of data fidelity is going to be important. And we work with those organizations to basically take what is for them a complex data, whether that's a news archive or space telemetry or thousands of minutes of footage of football games in the UK, and turn that into structured, queryable data. And what that does is that allows these folks to basically turn what is otherwise an underutilized asset into something that could power things like AI agents and co-pilots and internal tools and other applications. And the idea here is that what is generally challenging for many companies who have been thrust into this new reality and this new paradigm of AI workflows and needing to understand how data can be utilized in an AI context, how to do those kinds of initiatives where the data is usable and traceable and safe for AI. Largely, this came about from an observation a few years ago that my co-founder, Ken Kshenda, and I had while working on an AI project related to AI hardware at our previous employer. And I think what we observed in doing that project is that with the launch of ChatGPT, there's this massive interest from the enterprise suddenly in AI. There's obviously the massive consumer interest. People see this as this panacea to every single challenge that has ever faced humanity and start very quickly investing in AI solutions. And then shortly after that, get to talk about agents and the opportunity there. But then what people quickly hit a wall on was the fact that the level of effort required to ensure that data and content and the assets that actually fuel all of these workflows and all of these models work effectively is simply not at the same level as transfer model technology. And so what we started focusing on was how basically we could help folks on this side of the table, meaning the data owners, be able to create the kinds of AI experiences and monetize these experiences effectively without necessarily being deep AI engineering experts or deep data science experts in the AI machine learning space. We took a lot of the knowledges and experiences that our team had in building AI products and turned that into a platform that could help others reach their full AI potential, if you will.
Let's dive into the MVP for Infactory then. So that first version of the product you built, how long did it take to build and what sort of tools are you using to bring it to life?
MVP for us was pretty fast. I think one of the things that is always fortunate when you have a co-founder that was a part of the original iPhone. His name is many patents related to the development of iOS. He built the original Safari web browser as a team of two. Ken code shoots out of his fingertips, if you will, and I could brag about him because it's his work and not mine, but he's an extremely talented engineer. And so the original MVP was largely built by him when it was just the two of us and prototyping and figuring out. We had this impression of what the market was going to need, and we had an impression in terms of our expertise and where AI was at that given moment. And honestly, he basically built that, I'd say the original MVP within about 6 weeks. At the time, interestingly enough, not using a lot of the now more common AI co-pilots like Cursor and Windsurf and others. He did it, quote unquote, the old-fashioned way with some help from the coding assistants that ChatGPT had at the time. And it's interesting to see how that has evolved as the maturity of the AI coding assistants have evolved, where now the team is very much integrated with Cursor as kind of their primary coding assistant and a big part of their workflow, and what I see most of the engineers using in order to expedite the hands-on keyboard part of coding and focusing more on the introspective product development side of coding, which is, I think, pretty fascinating. But for MVP stage, Ken built it as a one-man band, if you will, with kind of a limited external assistance from AI.
I'm curious about decisions and trade-offs you have to make there, right? So in any sort of, MVP, right? Whether you're the one building it or your co-founder there, I'm curious about how you essentially cut scope, right? Or how you decided this is how we're going to approach it, or, this is how we're going to go attack things. That's sort of more general, but I'm curious about decisions and trade-offs you had to make in that MVP and how you coped with those decisions.
One of the biggest things was obviously with scope when you're talking about very early stage product, pre any kind of external funding. Resourcing is a trade-off, right? And so we quickly brought on a third co-founder kind of very early in our MVP process, Felipe, who is more a full stack engineer as opposed to Ken focusing on the core tech, if you will, and our differentiated IP and our approach to our query methodology and all the things that sort of make the secret sauce of our tech. Felipe was more focused on user experience and some backend system and the plumbing, if you will, to make sure that everything was running smoothly. So in terms of trade-off, what that meant is that if you saw the original MVP that we built, it would be a very confusing, difficult to understand, not intuitive, certainly not something that IDEO or a strong product design house would be particularly impressed with, or anyone coming out of Apple, which is ironic given that Ken has a deep Apple background. But the intent there was that we weren't trying to build something that a consumer was going to fall. We weren't building a consumer product for one, but that a consumer was going to fall in love with and immediately pick up and understand. We were not trying to differentiate based on user experience. We were very much trying to differentiate on an idea around what we believed the future of sort of data architecture and AI infrastructure was going to look like. And for that, we needed to mostly focus on core capabilities and query performance. And we traded, I guess you would call the ugliness and the clunkiness for something that, at least in terms of its ability to show initial customers and initial investors our worldview and our philosophy, that was the more important area to focus resources and time.
Guys, I've got something cool to tell you about. As an engineering leader, a manager, and an engineer myself, I'm geeking out over a new product I'm just discovering that helps me with each of these points of view. The great team at SEMA, builders of the SEMA Intelligence Platform, have been working on what they call the Product Roadmap Radar. It's this integrated solution that uses generative AI to observe your code and Jira in order to summarize, synthesize, and make it easier to deliver your roadmap. It not only helps keep your roadmap on track, but it helps reduce the time engineers spend in meetings. Cue all the engineers clapping. The product Roadmap Radar is extremely easy to set up. This only takes about 5 minutes. Just enable your integrations and let AI do all the mapping for you. My favorite part? I'm glad you asked. The Radar doesn't just tell you about your roadmap. It suggests changes you need to make based on the code that's been written and the stories that have been addressed. No commenting, no special setup, all generative AI. It gives you an outside view of your roadmap based on the code and projects a target completion date based on outstanding work and activity. Again, no comments, no special setup. It even detects shadow work when development is being done but Jira isn't being updated. I'm pretty jazzed about it, and I think you will be too. Take a second to watch a short but awesome demo video. Go to codestory.co/PRR to watch it today. You'll like what you see. This episode is brought to you by Paddle. As a startup, you face unique challenges to stay competitive. You and your team need to stay focused on your product, not your payments. You need to do more, MOR, and DIY less. With Paddle. Paddle is your merchant of record, becoming the seller of record for your SaaS transactions, enabling your team to focus on what's important, your product. Paddle handles all payment management across multiple gateways and methods, taking ownership of tax liability while remaining compliant with regulations across all markets. The platform handles all aspects of SaaS billing models, upgrades, add-on, trials, and more. Let's look at the results. MOR revenue optimization is built into Paddle and accounts for up to 16% higher conversion rates, reduced payment failures, localized pricing, and churn prevention, recovering 40% of cancellations. Their developer-friendly tools are API first with comprehensive documentation, removing the burden from your engineers. With Paddle as your merchant of record, you'll generate more revenue, find and keep more customers, grow faster, and stay compliant everywhere. So what are you waiting for? Get more revenue with less hassle at paddle.com. This message is sponsored by Vanta. Trust isn't just earned, it's demanded. Whether you're a startup founder navigating your first audit or a seasoned security professional scaling your GRC program, proving your commitment to security has never been more critical or more complex. That's where Vanta comes in. Businesses use Vanta to establish trust by automating compliance for in-demand frameworks like SOC 2, ISO 27001, HIPAA, and more. And with automation and AI throughout the platform, you can proactively manage vendor risk and complete security questionnaires up to 5 times faster, getting valuable time back. Vanta can also save you money. A new IDC white paper found that Vanta customers achieve $535,000 per year in benefits. So the platform pays for itself in just 3 months. Join over 10,000 global companies like Atlassian, Quora, and Infactory who use Vanta to manage risk and prove security in real time. For a limited time, listeners get $1,000 off Vanta at vanta.com/codestory. That's VANTA.com/codestory for $1,000 off. This episode is sponsored by Postman. APIs are the foundation of reliable AI, and reliable APIs start with Postman. Trusted by 98% of the Fortune 500, Postman is the platform that helps over 40 million developers build and scale the APIs behind their most critical business workflows. With Postman, teams get centralized access to the latest LLMs and APIs, MCP support, and no-code workflows, all in one platform. Quickly integrate critical tools and build multi-step agents without writing a single line of code. Start building smarter, more reliable agents today. Visit postman.com/podcast/codestory to learn more. That's postman.com/podcast/codestory. You got the MVP, it's working, you're getting some traction. I'm curious about how you progress it from that point and matured it. And to wrap in a box a little bit, what I'm looking for is how you built your roadmap. How do you went about deciding that, okay, this is the next most important thing to build or to address within Infactory?
In our founding team, we actually have 2 of the three of us, we have two very different backgrounds when it comes to like product management and roadmap development and how do you run cycles and iterate based on where you should focus next. And I call that out because I think that actually ended up being in some ways a bit of a superpower for our roadmap process, because the two perspectives are, one, my perspective is I come from largely massive enterprises, Google, Salesforce, Slack, who take a very methodical approach to road mapping based on customer feedback, for sure, but also are always trying to think like a few steps ahead in terms of bigger picture strategy and, to use a very cliched phrase, try to skate where the puck is going, keeping things the bigger picture rather than in the weeds. Versus Felipe's background is he's a serial entrepreneur. He was part of the founding team of Rappi, which is one of the first unicorns to come out of Latin America. It's the DoorDash of Latin America. And he's a YC grad, has done many startups. And at that, you're at a very micro level. You're very focused on who's your first customer and what are their pain points? And then who are your next 5 customers and what are their pain points? And you build a roadmap in these very like granular, almost like hour by hour, day by day type steps. But I bring them up because I think from a roadmap perspective is a bit of a superpower, and that Pipe was able to look at kind of initial feedback and make really fast adjustments within hours, basically, in terms of what people were saying, and keeping an eye on how do you keep like the existing customer base happy. And I was able to really focus on some of our large enterprise opportunities and talk to customers and be like, oh, this is what they actually are going to need in the next 6 months or even a year from now. Let's build our core tech stack in a way that like we're always going to be going in that direction so that we can meet our customers at the right time when that level of maturity actually exists. That was largely kind of what drove our decision process when it came to roadmap and thinking about how do you get from MVP to a truly production-ready version of the product.
Okay, so I'm curious about team. How did you go about building your team? And what do you look for in those people to indicate that they're the winning horses to join you?
So people are everything. Honestly, I say this all the time. People, when I ask how startup life is going, I think a lot of people assume it's the R&D heavy tech elements that are challenging. And there's certainly that in this landscape of rapidly shifting AI updates. And there's a new massive change to the industry, it seems like, on a weekly basis. But in my mind, none of that is nearly as challenging as ensuring that like you have the right people, the right level of motivation for the people that you have, that the people that you have on your team know what the expectations are, that they understand what the overarching vision is. For us, obviously, the founding team gave you a little bit of the origin story there. And I think what we tried to do is really balance out between, I have a deep business background, Ken has a deep technical background, and Pipe has a deep entrepreneurial background. And that Venn diagram, I think, has been really successful for us as a leadership part of the organization. But then trickling down to then the broader team, I think we've also then tried to almost recreate that balance. And we have folks with like very deep pedigreed backgrounds from the biggest tech organizations in the world and have been part of very large engineering teams. We have folks who have worked on super academic, deeply technical work for organizations like NASA. And then we have people with a very scrappy entrepreneurial focus. And so trying to put all of those pieces together and making sure that no part of the team is like particularly overweighted in one direction, I think has been a good fit for us. This is an interesting time on a very tactical level as in terms of recruiting in the space, because the demand for AI talent is fierce. And that's partly why we even built the company that we did, because we recognize that there's just not enough AI talent to go around. And what you have to do when you're recruiting for a startup is that you're not going to be winning people over with most competitive salary packages that a larger company would be able to offer. But what you are recruiting on is the opportunity to work on something that is bleeding edge, 0 to 1, the opportunity to actually have an impact on the industry at a much more personal level than you would get if you were just a company or an employee at a much larger company. And so a big part of our recruiting strategy has always been about, is working on something where you have a hand in basically from day one until however long this company lasts, something that motivates you and gets you excited. If so, then you're probably the right fit for this kind of endeavor.
This episode is brought to you by Propel-Off. People take authentication for granted, but it's more than how customers log into your product. It's how you manage your relationship with your users. The easiest way to make authentication your advantage is to use Propel-Off. Propel Auth is more than just functional. It's powerful. With tools like Managed UIs, Enterprise SSO, robust user management features, and actionable insights, Propel Auth adapts as your product grows. And the best part? When auth is effortless, your team can focus on scaling, not troubleshooting. That means more releases, happier customers, and more growth for your business. Save dev time, win over your customers, and propel your business forward with Propel Auth. Check them out at propelauth.com. That's propelauth.com. This episode is sponsored by MailySearch. In today's digital landscape, search isn't just a feature, it's a cornerstone. And you need a user experience that drives customer satisfaction. You need MailySearch. MailySearch has lightning-fast performance, returning answers in less than 50 milliseconds. Yeah, you heard that right. Faster than the blink of an eye. The open-source AI search engine is plug-and-play, so you can get up and running in minutes with smart presets, allowing you to start searching through your data with zero configuration. MailySearch utilizes advanced full-text search and AI, ensuring your results are ultra-relevant with semantic depth. It's multimodal, supporting images, videos, and audio, along with being federated, i.e. searching across multiple data sources. And it's developer-friendly. Whether you're building a content-rich website or enterprise application, MailySearch delivers the experience your users expect and deserve. For a limited time, CodeStory users can get 2 months free. Use the promo code CODESTORY, all one word, at checkout. Just go to MailySearch.com and get started today. That's MEILI search.com. Let's move into scalability. And I'm curious where scalability has come into play, right? What you're building for has scale sort of in it, built into it in certain capacity. But I'm curious if there have been interesting areas where you've had to fight scale as you've grown.
It's interesting because given the fact that we work primarily with large enterprise, like a single customer can basically eat up the entirety of our team's like resources and attention. In terms of managing scale, that has sometimes meant turning down opportunities that it's always hard to say no to revenue when you're an early stage startup. But those opportunities have not put us in position to grow in a way that is sustainable in the long term, that they're too much of a sort of branch from the overarching direction of the goals that we've set forth. And it isn't to say that we're completely myopic in terms of our viewpoint as to like where our customers should be and what our like ideal sort of customer profile is, and would never consider alternative viewpoints to that based on new information. But it does mean that if you're trying to scale quickly, and all startups are, and everyone in this AI space is also trying to scale quickly, and you're trying to scale efficiently without it being a massive drain on resources, and you only have so many resources to go around, you do have to take a very almost cutthroat approach to the kinds of opportunities you can say yes to. And there's some that are just not going to move the needle forward in a way that is sustainable for the business overall. And an example of that is on the technical side, particularly when we first started the company, there was a ton of interest in retrieval augmented generation. Examples of people building AI agents and applications where there's a degree of constraining around what sources the AI has access to, and the RAG flows power many of the enterprise workflows that you see in AI today. We have the easy capability to build RAG applications. This team is very well versed in RAG, but we also believe that it's not the right solution for a lot of the kinds of use cases that customers are coming to us for. And so in cases where we've basically been asked to use our technology to support the development of RAG applications, we've said no, because it's not really at the heart of what our core tech is trying to achieve. It's not really going to help us get any closer to those goals. That was tough because from a scale perspective, Todd Hartley could have put a bunch of kind of initial customer interest and revenue into the business, but ultimately those were not going to be sustainable opportunities, just given that that's not the kind of company that we're building.
So as you step out on the balcony and you look across all that you've built at Infactory, what are you most proud of?
Definitely team, for one, I think is going back to the team being everything. The fact that in a landscape where anyone that has any degree of AI and ML expertise has choices, and they have good choices for the most part. And there's so much excitement, particularly here in the Bay Area, really all over the country, of folks that, are starting their own things, folks that are pursuing working for the top model companies like OpenAI and Anthropic, people that are basically developing new foundations to our economy. This is happening across the board. And so the fact that we have been able to attract really high caliber people who see the mission of what we're building and recognize why it's important and have bought into our view of where the future of AI is, which is one that's based on supporting the interests of content owners and media partners and data owners and creating sustainable revenue for those partners, and basically avoiding what we call the acidification of the internet, where eventually everything is synthetic AI content and there's no value to it. I think that I'm proud that has been something that has clearly resonated with experts in the space, that they've wanted to come in and join this project. Everybody who's working here now has made some kind of choice or even sacrifice in order to work for a small stage startup. And so I don't take that lightly. And I think it is a reflection of both the team as a whole and the collaboration that the team has together and the joint mission, as well as I think the importance of what we're building.
Let's flip the script a little bit. Tell me about a mistake you made and how you and your team responded to it.
We had a situation where we had a massive regression before we had planned to do a pretty big marketing and public launch of getting individual developers to test. We've largely been focused on the enterprise, as I mentioned, but there is an access point for individual devs who want to use our technology for smaller scale agent building and smaller scale sort of data preparation work. And we had put a lot of resources into the marketing side of creating assets, and all these things that led to this moment. And the end result was that there was regression right before, maybe within 24 hours that we were planning to do this. And so we had to make the really tough call that it couldn't be salvaged in time to really go forward with the launch. And so we scrapped the original launch plans. And it was a really stressful moment. It really felt a bunch of work that had been at least weeks in the making, which in startup time may as well be quarters, was now for naught. And it was not a high morale moment. I think in terms of how I am proud of the team in terms of moving forward is that I'm a big believer. I'm what happens in the past is it happens in the past. It's not that I don't believe in postmortems or recognizing that there's always a good time to reflect and figure out how we can do better. But sitting around being if only this hadn't happened, if only X, Y, and Z scenario hadn't played out, let's run in circles on it. I'm we don't have time for that. Every second counts. It's what we're doing. And so let us get it back to square one. I even considered, we could just roll everything back if we wanted to, and consider the cost benefit of that. We decided not to roll back and instead fix what was broken and then get at least back to square one. And honestly, the team did that in a much faster time than I would have expected, given that it came at a point where I think people were feeling frustrated and not necessarily your most motivated point. But I think that we've built a culture where mistakes happen. The mistakes happen constantly. And it's how you deal with them, not how you dwell on them.
This will be fun. And it'll be fun to hear your passion come out for what you've built. Tell me what the future looks like for the product, for the company, and for your team.
We're really in a point now where the use cases are starting to expand. When Ken and I first started the company, people were still in chatbot mode. They hadn't quite figured out all the areas where AI was going to touch the enterprise and where it was going to impact sort of day-to-day work. A lot of the, what I think of the 1.0 use cases for AI, replacing traditional inbound and outbound sales management processes. You see it in kind of customer support use cases. Obviously, for coding assistance was one of the initial use cases. I think what has been the 2.0 version, and there are many versions ahead, we're still in the kind of early days, but I think is the recognition that truly there is no part of knowledge work or day-to-day work that is not going to be impacted by AI in some way. And so what that means for us is that if you are thinking about how do I prepare data and how do I get the right amount of data analysis and structure and data safety that I'm going to need for AI, there's really no part of your data that shouldn't really be AI ready. And so that I think is really exciting. Many of our customers are in the media space. And when we were starting some of these projects a year ago, again, it was a lot of focus on, is there a way for people to search over our archives? Or is there a way for people to ask natural language questions and get interesting responses back and have a give and take with our content? I think now the media companies are recognizing that humans will drastically reduce the amount of time they spend on a media webpage or a publisher's homepage. And a lot of this is going to come directly from agent interaction and personalized agents and agent orchestration. And so they're trying to up-level their data assets for agents to be the main access point, not an actual human referral traffic. And that's a completely different landscape than even just 12 months ago in terms of where people felt like the future was and how quickly we're moving towards it. And so for us, getting the chance to help build that and really be thinking about an entirely different economic model for media, I think is very exciting.
Okay, Brooke, let's switch to you. Who influences the way that you work? Name a person or many persons or something you look up to and why.
I think a big one for me is I had a very early career mentor that I was lucky to have. And I have to get asked this question of how do you find mentors? And particularly as a woman in this field, do you connect with people that are going to give you advice or support you? And to me, I'm the biggest thing is not to go out and be please mentor me, but to just find natural relationships, right? Find people that you respect and people whose work you admire and find a reason why you should be connected to them. And in my case, when I was out of undergrad, I had moved to New York City to go to graduate school. And I had planned to, as I mentioned, I was a humanities major. I had no intention of immediately joining the workforce. I thought I'd eventually end up being a lawyer or a therapist or something that was intended for people that were good at communicating. But I did have a connection to a woman named Cass Lazaro, who had been a serial entrepreneur. She and her husband had already sold a company to Time Warner. They were in the process of starting a new company. And I was interested in it partly because it was focused on social media. And as a millennial who had graduated in the 2010s, social media was at this time this very nascent technology. And I was fascinated with where it was going to go and how it was going to be monetized. And this was pre-Instagram, pre-really Facebook newsfeed, pre-Snapchat, anything else. So I just wanted to talk from her and learn from her. And in doing so, she actually convinced me to delay grad school, come work for her startup, and the rest was history. And for me, I have always seen her as an example of someone who is willing to just be scrappy and not always take the most obvious path, but to let work be something that is untraditional and follow where your interests and passions are. She's also someone I look up to because when she and her husband were starting the company that I ended up joining, she had just had her third baby. She had the baby in the stroller while they were building desks. So she never took the mindset that you couldn't have a very challenging and demanding job alongside having kids, which I think about often now that I'm a startup mom, if you will. And so, yeah, she's someone that always is top of mind for me when I think about how I work and what I value and why I choose the work opportunities that I do.
Brooke, last question. So you're getting on a plane and you're sitting next to a young entrepreneur who's built the next big thing. They're jazzed about it. They can't wait to show it off to the world and can't wait to show it off to you right there on the plane. What advice do you give that person, having gone down this road a bit?
I would say my advice is one, just do it. I think a lot of times there's a million sort of hurdles that people put in front of them when it comes to the idea of starting a company or doing kind of any big choice. And there's nothing stopping anyone from actually just going down the entrepreneurial path. It's one of the most beautiful things about choosing to be a founder is that there's many ways to the flavors of it. You can take VC-backed capital, you can bootstrap, you can take be a technical founder where you're the builder, you can be the business founder and go find a technical founder to support you. But if you want to do it, there's no barrier. It's not like applying for a job or applying for school where someone is allowed to tell you that you can't do it. It's only your own motivation to keep going. And obviously, if you have something that's exciting and amazing, then customers will tell you whether this is something of value. And I think to align with that, it also means that you have this weird, almost like schizophrenia issue where you have to be willing to take feedback and hear feedback from customers, but you also then kind of have to ignore feedback from everybody else, which is again why I say just do it. Because if you decided to start a startup and you tell people your idea, there will be a million people that will tell you that it's a bad idea. That there's a reason that there's no market for this, that there's too much competition, it's too costly, it will take too much time, it'll take too much money, whatever. The only person that can tell you whether or not this is actually viable is like, one, the customer base, and two, your own degree of motivation for doing it. Because it will be hard, it will be painful, it will be one of the most challenging things you've ever done. And so even if you have a brilliant idea, that doesn't mean that it will necessarily be a fruitful path. But yeah, I mean, my advice is generally go for it. There shouldn't be anything holding you back.
Couldn't agree more. That's fantastic advice. Well, Brooke, thank you for being on the show today. And thank you for telling the creation story of Infactory.
Awesome. Thank you.
And this concludes another chapter of Code Story. Code Story is hosted and produced by Noah Labhart. Be sure to subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or the podcasting app of your choice. And when you get a chance, leave us a review. Both things help us out tremendously. And thanks again for listening.
You just realized your business needed to hire someone yesterday. How can you find amazing candidates fast? Easy. Just use Indeed. Stop struggling to get your job post seen on other job sites. With Indeed sponsored jobs, your post jumps to the top of the page for your relevant candidates, so you can reach the people you want faster. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs posted directly on Indeed have 45% more applications than non-sponsored jobs. Don't wait any longer. Speed up your hiring right now with Indeed. And listeners of this show will get a $75 sponsored job credit to get your jobs more visibility at Indeed.com/PODKATZ12. Just go to Indeed.com/PODKATZ12 right now and support our show by saying you heard about Indeed on this podcast. Terms and conditions apply. Hiring? Indeed is all you need.
If you're a podcast host, listen up, this one's for you. My name is Allie Jackson. I'm the host of Finding Mr. Height, a dating and relationship podcast that I've been doing for 4 years now, sharing my positive and practical approach to dating that's built on my own life experience. And I wanted to share another experience that I've had, my secret behind monetizing my show. It's called Red Circle, and I was just telling my colleague about how much I love their platform. With Red Circle, not only am I getting a seamless hosting experience, but I also love the support I receive in ad sales. It's not just typical ad sales either. It's targeted opportunities based on my show and my life. And the platform is super simple. You just set your preferences and Red Circle matches you with sponsors that align with your show. You can vet every opportunity and their platform gives you great analytics. More recently too, my Red Circle team has brought me opportunities outside of my podcast on social media to really augment the podcast partnerships, bring them full circle. I just can't recommend them enough. If you want to give it a try, go to redcircle.com to get your free trial. That's redcircle.com for a free trial.